and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into another beer from Wicked Weed Brewing Company, and it is the third of four from this same barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures beer series. And today's in question is S'mores. These are all Imperial Pastry Stouts. This one clocks in at 12.2% ABV and has added chocolate and vanilla. Wicked Weed based in Asheville, North Carolina. So in terms of label art, it's basically the exact same theme. This one chose a dark green background and it looks like it has melting, dripping chocolate pouring down the top. So it kind of gets you in the mood here. We're using our all-purpose Sam Adams glass today. Just get this cracked gently. All right, and I have some preconceived thoughts of what I might expect in this, but I'll wait until I jump in and we'll see how this goes. Y'all know me, if you've watched this channel for a while, I absolutely love s'mores. It's one of my all-time favorite desserts. And if I see a s'mores beer, I'm going to grab it anyway. And indeed, that was actually the catalyst for me grabbing the 4-pack of these beers, as I saw there was a s'mores variant in the pack. So I grabbed it. All right, this formed a pretty good head, but let's just take a quick peek. Absolutely pitch black, as expected. Get right up over this for a sniff. Oh yeah, very pungent, wow. So just as with the last, you can really smell the barrels coming off of this. Again, it smells to me like a whiskey barrel. They don't specify. That's what it smells like. It smells like a whiskey barrel. It also smells very strongly of rich roasty malts. And this one, you can definitely pick out the chocolate and the vanilla on the nose as well. So it really smells exactly like you would expect it to. Very pronounced aroma. Everything has its own, kind of line that's popping out of the whole aroma, but it's really easy to pick out each of the independent parts. So, head is still holding true. Let's just jump right in and see what this one's about. Take one. Oh yeah, that's nice. It's another big beer, guys. So, start with body and mouthfeel. The body on this feels kind of a medium heavy. Feels pretty much where I'd expect for this style of beer in this ABV range. Some could be a little lighter, some could be a little heavier. I would say this is just right. It's kind of top end of what my expectation is. In terms of the mouthfeel, you can absolutely feel the resistance on this. Again, these are thicker beers, but this one gets very creamy when you agitate around the palate. So it feels quite nice. It adds just this other layer of depth to the mouthfeel. So you get that resistance, you get that weight, you get that creaminess, and it really, really works well together, texturally and weight-wise. In terms of the flavor profile, this pretty much is presenting to my palate exactly what I expected. So we'll talk about it. The first thing is that the barrel is quite clear. Again, it tastes like whiskey to me. It's possible they're using bourbon whiskey, but it's definitely some kind of whiskey that I think I'm tasting and that I think I smell. They don't specify. That's what it smells like and tastes like to me. In terms of the underlying flavor, the theme of a s'mores pastry stout, look, this would be a tough dessert to do without multiple additions, and really, I've had some pastry stout variants. It works better in the form of a milk stout. It tastes more true to the dessert. This is inspired. It's not going to taste like s'mores. There's no lactose in here to sweeten it up, let the ingredients pop. That said, just as with the whiskey back, you can absolutely taste the chocolate, you can taste the vanilla, it just doesn't taste sweet. So it's coming across as a darker kind of chocolate vibe, and it actually pairs well with this malt bill in this one because it does add just this richer underpinning, a little bit of a more roasty edge to it otherwise. But does it actually put me in mind of s'mores proper? Well, no. Without the sweetness, no. Without added graham cracker, no. Without the marshmallow, plus the lactose to let all the ingredients pop and taste like the dessert, no. No, it does not taste like s'mores. It's a s'mores-inspired pastry stout with one of the ingredients and by proxy another. Most marshmallows are indeed vanilla flavored, not all, but quite common that there would be an addition of vanilla flavoring in a marshmallow. So it's got two aspects, but it's missing the fundamental basis, the graham cracker. Without the graham cracker, to me, it's just not a s'more. But that's okay. That's okay. It's never really going to taste like that in a pastry stout. Pastry stouts are going to have additions. If they're going to make something like this, they may take inspiration from a classic dessert or do their own thing. But because they don't have the lactose addition in there, if you have ingredients that require sugar, it's never going to taste exactly like it should. It's not going to mimic the exact dessert. So it does taste exactly as I expected. It's missing a couple key elements that would truly make this a s'mores beer, but I see where they get their inspiration from. That said, it's very, very tasty. I really like the chocolate in this because it brings out that rich underpinning that can sometimes get muddled in the malt bill, and also adds a layer of richness to the malt bill itself. So these two really come out and combine and bind. Kind of the vanilla addition is binding on my palate a little bit more prevalently with the barrel-aged side of the equation. So it's almost got two parts. It's got vanilla plus barrel, and it's got chocolate plus malt. But it works very, very well, and it is indeed a tasty beer. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip. We'll let everything re-intensify, pick it apart again, make sure I didn't miss anything, then we'll talk about the balance and the finish. Take two. Yeah, it's nice. Barrel, vanilla, immediate burst, backs off over the course of a few seconds as the underpinnings of the malt bill and the chocolate really start to rise up. Again, it's not sweet, but even though there's no sweetness, I am very distinctly getting a chocolatey vibe off of this. It's like rich, dark chocolate. It's really, really nice. Yeah, traditionally, s'mores you would make with milk chocolate. But that's the vibe. It definitely tastes of chocolate. And there's this really nice roasty back to it. It's binding so well with that chocolate that it's tough to say if all of that flavor is coming out of the chocolate addition itself or if some of it's getting drive out of the underlying malt bill. Either way, they're working very symbiotically together. And indeed, as this lingers on, the kind of chocolate underpinning almost starts to take on this rich fudge-like quality. It's really, really quite nice. The vanilla is not over the top. I have talked about this before. It's an ingredient that's very pungent. It's also very expensive if you're using real vanilla bean, and it can overpower a beer, aroma and flavor profile. So brewing with vanilla does require a very deft hand, and they used a very deft hand here. In general, I think the balance is excellent. I'm getting great barrel, chocolate, and vanilla, and the underlying malt bill itself popping out of not only the aroma, but across all of the flavor profile. It's really, really nice, guys. Very well balanced pastry stout here. In terms of the finish, this one is longer than your typical pastry stout. It's an Imperial, it is barrel aged, it's got additives, but this isn't quite as long as maybe you might expect. Indeed, I think one or two of the others I had prior had a much longer finish on the back. And considering the pungency, especially that rich kind of roasty underpinning that I got from the chocolate and the malt bill, I personally thought that this was going to have a pretty substantive drive on the end of the finish, but it's not. It's longer than average, but it's not over the top. So I would say it's kind of above average-ish, but it's not top tier. But it is very nice. And the way that it finishes on the back of the palate, it is wet and round, but you have lingering bits of barrel and lingering underlying roasty edge of the malt bill and chocolate. The vanilla actually gets out of the way before the end of the finish. But it's nice. It's nice. This is another really well put together beer. If you like pastry stouts in general, you like these bigger ones, dessert inspired, yeah, this is definitely one you're going to enjoy. I subjectively think so far this is probably my favorite. Yeah, and it's just another well done by Wicked Weed. Guys, I'm going to take my time sipping this, count my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Wicked Weed Brewing Company's barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures line s'mores variant, a barrel-aged Imperial Pastry Stout. This one clocked in at 12.2% ABV, brewed with chocolate and vanilla. Wicked Weed is based in Asheville, North Carolina. So yet again, we don't know what barrels they actually did use, but it does smell and taste very much like whiskey. So that is my assumption. And this was another really, really good beer. Very well done. All of these have been great. You know, whether or not they exactly are going to taste like, you know, their dessert inspiration, Probably not. It's a pastry stout. It's not a milk stout. But you can definitely appreciate the underpinnings and what went into the thought process to try to replicate that in pastry stout form. So this one I did definitely enjoy. Had a lot more rich and chocolatey undertones than some of the others we've tried so far, and I think that that went really, really nice in this beer. And yet again, another one of these beers in this line that did exceptionally well across most categories. Indeed, only two today that did not get a perfect score. So we will jump straight to those in question. The first of those was the finish. So the finish on this beer was definitely long and it was definitely above average, but it wasn't quite top tier considering the pungency of flavor, the barrel aging, and the ABV range. 12.2, I did expect that the finish would last a bit longer than it did, but it was above average and the finish does get a 7 out of 10. For the head of the retention, this one did a very, very good job. Just shy of perfection for my money. It really formed nicely and it held around most of the length of time you would imagine to see a well-formed head on a beer. Very, very close. I only docked 1 point here. The head and the retention gets a 9 out of 10, which does leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 8 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, appearance, balance, my subjective thoughts, feelings category, and finally example of style. So the total score on Wicked Weed Brewing Company's barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures S'mores is a 96 out of 100. So yeah, a really, really good beer, guys. You know, I've said it a million times on this channel. I absolutely love s'mores. If I see a s'mores beer, I'm going to get it. For pastry stout, this was very, very well done. Was it exactly like this dessert? No, but clearly inspired by it. And if you're into pastry stouts, I think this is one you should definitely consider keeping on your radar. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.